Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this January 4th, 2016 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. As always, you can listen to my show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Time, and that's on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Doesn't this year start out interesting? So much going on. I think the big story, at least here on Earth, is what's going on between the Sunnis and the Shiites, and this what I consider to be the powder keg that's going to ignite a bigger conflict. But we'll get into that perhaps in another show this week. So much more going on, and let's look at it from a different point of view. Instead of an earthly point of view, this year God could come down, and he could end the reign of the evildoers, the rulers of evil, and basically open up his arms to all of those who have believed in him. And where do we go from there? You know, every year people say that, and the point is we just don't know. We always try to put words into God's mouth, and it really backfires on us, because I think since every generation has said the world is coming to an end. Well, it's everything that begins has to end, I guess. But to put a specific date on it is ridiculous, because if you do read the Bible, God has given us a lot of years to figure this out. Some say he's got a 7,000-year plan. Now, somebody out there, give me an idea of what that is. Is that true? Is there a 7,000-year plan that God has? We know it's not 4,000. We know it's not 5,000. Is it a 7,000-year plan? And I'd like to know about that, because I can't quite figure that out myself. But anyway, anytime we try to put words into God's mouth, we get in trouble. I think we just ought to listen to what he said, the best he said in the Bible, and he said he's going to come down and help us with this problem we have on earth today. And I agree with that, and I think he will someday. I just don't know when. And I know there's a lot of people that would like it to happen as quickly as possible. I guess all those people in prison would like that, wouldn't they? All of these people that have been in prison so long for crimes they haven't committed. I would gather that there are so many people in American prisons that don't belong there, that would really look forward to God coming down and taking a stand against this. And I can't blame them. At times I almost feel like I'm in prison, just living in this in the new world order that's been created for me. There's little room to really maneuver unless you bump into one of these jerks that are telling you to do this, do that, do this, do that, laws that just make absolutely no sense. And for example, I did a show once on saying, I wake up every day thinking about all these, what are the little stupid laws I can break that aren't going to land me in jail, of course. I don't believe in robbing from people. Burglarizing homes, like happened to me over the holidays, I might add. And that's a shocking thing when it happens to you. You just go, wow. You just sit back and you go, I can't believe this is going on in the world. If people would just live by one thought, treat yourself as you treat your neighbor. And what's yours is yours, and what's his is his, and who cares who has more than another person? Because is it really the material wealth that's important? It's and I get into this discussion all the time with people. And of course you got to live in this world. Of course you got to survive. Of course you got to have money. You can't live without it. But choosing how you're going to make it is very important. And we'll get into that at a different time. By no means am I a financial counselor. Because I've always lived by the adage of buy high, sell low. But anyway, getting off on some of these tangents, what I want to get back to is this idea of putting words into God's mouth. And by no means am I a biblical scholar. I've taken interest in the Bible through my many stories I've done over the years that connect Rome to the New World Order. And I always said all roads lead to Rome. And I've seen many good people go by the wayside in our society today. I don't have to go back to the Inquisition, or I don't have to go back to Martin Luther. I can look right today and show you how many people are being toppled over by this group of people, and what I believe needs to be done is for us to understand it. Now, I'm going to start out with some really good news, that there is a plan that's far more powerful than what the New World Order plans are. And everybody seems to fear these plans. But really, they are just, to me, the best laid plans of the Jesuit mice and men. It's that simple to me. These guys come up with all these different scenarios. There's so much going on right now. If I just talked about what they were doing, the fear of the Vatican, would usurp this whole room, but it isn't going to happen, because in this place that I reside, it doesn't even affect me anymore, because their plans are so shallow, so easy to figure out. If you allow the Word of God and really people who have studied these things through maybe the inspiration of the Holy Spirit that come to you, you get an idea of how to fight these people, and it isn't through revolt. It isn't through running away into the woods and hiding. It's basically confronting this beast on its own ground. Here on earth, that's their ground. It's been given to them, and hopefully the reason that we do this is that one or two of them may come over to the other side and really see the light. And you see this all the time happening. And the point I'm trying to make is all the jails in our country are filled with people who have fallen prey to what the system is all about, and that is there are rulers of evil that rule evil people, and if you fall into their trap, you may end up, one of these people that unfortunately goes to jail without reason. Now, the reason I say this is that from a legal standpoint, now I have a law degree and worked in law firms before, many law firms, and dealt with criminal cases and all these kind of things. What I see is there's people that fall prey to the system. Then there's others that have been targeted by the system, who, for their stance against this beast, this New World Order beast, and these are few and far between, they have been basically targeted and put in prison for their views. And these people are separated from the others that I think. What I see when I was working criminal cases, where I'd see, people falling prey to this materialistic view where they had to have this, had to steal this, had to get involved in this, had to do this. And they end up confronting the beast, and the beast saying, listen, you have not supported God and country, and you need to be put away. Well, then this other group of people are these people that are what I call politically active. Or they may be spiritually active, that they allow God into their life, and they want to really make a difference. And these are the people that really get targeted by the New World Order, because they cannot have too much good going on here to destroy what they've created in this world that they have basically, let's just call it the Vatican-led New World Order. Now, to start off this year with some good news, since this is my first show of the 2016 year, I like to bring together the spiritual and the secular in a kind of let's just say a practical way. Is there really this targeting going on today? Do people really go to jail for their views? Yes, of course. And I've presented one man who's been in jail he was sentenced for 175 years. He has a Christian ministry that he started over 40 years ago with his wife. And I've had many people on from his ministry, and I know these guys are doing some really good things. They're still to this day, even though this ministry has been attacked in three levels. One, they put the minister in jail on false charges. Two, the children of the ministry were rounded up like cattle and taken away from their parents. That's two. And three, now they're trying to take their property. But they have not succeeded in taking their souls for the people that remain. And for those that I've seen, I looked at their website, the Alamo Ministry website, 300,000 hits every week. I see strength in their conviction. I don't see them varying from their points of view. And I see this as a sign that, we still have a right to our own views in this country, despite what many people think, and fear and all these things can take it away. Well, for some good news today, I wanted to say that I have tried for a year. First I looked at this story and I said, I'm a journalist. I want to find out the truth. I don't want to go take this story and go the wrong way with it. And what happened was I realized that they were being charged with the same crimes that the Vatican does commit, because I watched the Vatican on so many higher levels, because I've watched them when I worked in Rome, and I see exactly how they operate. And I said, this is exactly what they do, and they're charging these people with it. And is this true about them? And I found out it wasn't. And so then I said, well, why would they go to this extreme? The extreme is really important here because it not only makes this message what they feel muted, but it also sets an example for others who want to basically talk against the Pope. And when I say talk against him, I don't mean slandering him, using the word slander or libeling in a legal sense. I'm saying bringing the facts out for what this organization has done and the benefits they've received from it. That's all. And that is the hardest conversation to ever get on the table. So I respect these people for getting the literature out all over the world, and I've talked to pastors and had emails from people all over the world who work with this ministry and say, yes, we receive Bibles from them, we receive inspiration. And guess what? The more times they put this guy in jail, Tony, the stronger they seem to get, even though they take away a lot of their worldly goods. What's that all about? You explain it to me. But I wanted to say that since I realized that they were being framed, and looking at this from not only a journalist point of view, but let's say I'm a public defense attorney in the public court of public opinion. Let's just say that. And let's just say that I want these people represented in a fair manner. I want the truth coming out. So I started really hounding all the newspapers and all the radio stations, sending them. I did a press release on their behalf, and I've received some responses back that we're going to do some interviews, and I'm going to continue to send out 20 a day until we get some justice. And it is my hope, and I have this kind of what I hope that the little that I've done on this show has gotten to some ears that'll get Tony out of jail. And I hope it happens this year. And that's what I am hoping for in 2016, that somehow his sentence is commuted. He's paid enough. He's paid enough for what he hasn't done. Let him come out and end his life with the people that he loves. That is my wish. And hopefully 2016 will bring that. I'm not changing anything in God's word. I'm saying this is what I can say on this earth, what I would like to see happen. And that's despite Matt Damon and all his money yelling to the top of his lungs on some of his blogs, oh, it's good this guy's in jail. Matt, you have no idea what you're talking about. And just stick to, what's the latest movie you did? That fake movie about being on Mars. Watch that and get a laugh out of that. And how many millions did he get for putting another, false story out there that we really, live in this huge universe where the sun, where we rotate around the sun and we're moving at 100 million miles an hour, and we went to Mars and we're going to the moon. This is all, you guys, really take your money and put it where the sun don't shine. Okay. So anyway, that's a wish. And I hope the few things I do will move that forward. Okay. So I got a message from one of their members, who said that Tony had Pastor Alamo had a message. Now, he's been in jail for a long, long time. And here's his message to people. And hopefully it's not, take it for, it's not just to people in his church. It's for everyone. And I don't know if I could ever do something like this after sitting there all these years, sitting behind bars like that. But he says this. He says, I'm well, my strength and well-being coming from he who knew me before I was formed in the womb. With that being said, I've No time for sadness or pity concerning my own situation. I know and stand firm in the fact that the Lord will deliver me from all my infirmities, regardless of what the situation may look like. That's why I always continue to put forth my best effort towards winning souls for Christ. Is this not the responsibility that He has placed on each of us? Thank you for the stand that you've taken in this ministry, for continuing to fight the good fight, regardless of what we're faced with on a daily basis. Continue to press towards the mark, and be blessed. And then he went on to say, please know that my new year is a new year of new beginnings and victories in Jesus Christ. I know that the church is about to grow. The gospel of our God is reaching more people than ever before, and I'm not naive enough to believe, think, or feel that it could have been done without the help of everyone involved in this ministry. From the toilet janitors to the tractors, from the business office to the church, from the musicians to the pastors, in the deepest jungles and mountainous regions in the face of this earth. God is truly wonderful, and I believe with my whole heart that our Heavenly Father is still doing a mighty work. I pray that you look at the gifting of this new year as one that will be both exciting and praiseworthy. Now, you know what? I particularly enjoy that message because it's a message of hope. It's a message to show that there's something more than just to be, all we hear about. And I'll go into this in a moment, because that's all I get is emails. And, we're going to talk about the update in Oregon, what's going on there with the militia, supposedly, that's taken over a federal building. Then we're going to go talking about somebody who sent me an email regarding a book called The Pawns. And then they're saying that I'm a little bit misguided as far as the evil in the Vatican and when it started. And all of these things come out. And what are we faced with every day? We're faced with all these stories that are placed into our hands by the New World Order. Well, why don't you take a story that's placed into your hands by someone more powerful than the New World Order? And maybe if you put those two things together, you'll find that the fear goes away. You'll find that you're living you're living a life that's being controlled by them. You're letting them control you. Why should you do that? You're better than them. You're better than those people in the Vatican at the top level. You're better than those people in the top levels of Washington. And if you believe all this stuff, if you believe that you're going to fall, without any hope that there's a better way, you're going to just be one of the pawns in their game. And the guy's right when he sent me that, and you'll get it in a second. But I did want to start. I'm going to use this half hour to, I got about 6 minutes. I don't know if I can get through this, but I want to try to get through three things. This little bit of an update in Oregon from the views of some people that sent me some emails. Then I want to talk about this email I got from a targeted individual who's been sending me emails for years. And when I say targeted, he's targeted by microwave weaponry. And he sent me something that he wrote. And then I want to talk about, I got to do this. I used to do this every year, years ago, and I'd bring the truth about Christmas before Christmas. And finally I said, I don't want to dampen anybody's spirits. So somebody sent me this video, The Truth About Christmas, and I thought I'd play it. I haven't played all of it, but I trust in this person's judgment. And maybe playing it after the fact will give you an idea of what is really going on behind the scenes without dampening your holidays. The holidays are over. And I'm sure in about a month they'll start advertising for that materialistic Christmas all over again. So you got a month of breathing. But in between that month, you got to worry about what? What's next? Valentine's Day. Oh, yeah, more gifts. I'm not getting anybody anything for Valentine's Day. I'll tell you that. I don't even think that holiday should exist. But in any way, it's not very wholesome when you realize where it really came from. But let's start out. Break the update in Oregon. Okay, you've heard what's going on there. In general, one of my listeners said, if anyone believes this is a singular standalone problem for ranchers protecting their rights in Oregon, best rethink this. What is being exposed is the drone weaponry and surveillance apparatus which is already in place and which is exactly how you will be controlled by force. When referring to the citizens with guns who are fighting against the illegal arrests by the U.S. government, a government informant replies, those yahoos won't even know what hit them, and adds, no problem shooting an expletive-deleted hellfire up there, you know what. He's referring to what will be done by the U.S. military, to a community fighting against the U.S. government who's intending to steal the Hammond Ranch for its owners. It is also what is being done forcibly on the native reservations. They are usurping land they want. This is yet again why the gun control issue is a bit of a distraction, because conventional firearms do not have a chance against their high-tech weaponry. And she's right about that. Exactly what I'm getting at. The EM weapon, it's like David and Goliath's story all over again. The EM weaponry that they are going to implement, it wouldn't be nice if it turned out that way, but I don't know. The EM weaponry that they are going to implement will take care of problem situations like this very quickly, along with the discrediting of sincere people trying to fight the criminals in government. And then she gives a few places to go to, but read up on this Oregon standoff. Now, someone else sent me this, said this, I don't trust Bundy. They look like good guys, but they are working behind the scenes maybe. This emailer says. So we're talking about what happened to the Bundy Ranch and this fire situation where they were put in jail for trying to protect their property or something like that. After all said and done, their ranch is still there after how long? A couple of years now. This is Rome's creation. Okay. So she's looking at it from a different point of view, trying to figure out, is this a controlled opposition test or not? Well, whatever it is, I like looking at it from the point of view, are they going to start using these drone weaponry on these people? Is it a test for that? And of course, anytime you hear these things, you have to start thinking twice after you find out the truth about Sandy Hook. I mean, that is so obvious that they set that up. But anyway, all right. This one, let me see how much time I got. I may have to go into the next half hour. Yeah, I only got 2 minutes. So let's not talk about this. Let's go into the next half hour. Let me just end this segment with saying this. That the one story that stuck out to me over all these bad stories, I mean, there were so many coming in over the holidays, this terror alert in Brussels, this terror alert in New York, policemen going through the subways, looking at what, just saying, give me your IDs, things like this, all this stuff going on. All over the world. I mean, not only in Brussels, I mean, in Germany and other places, heightened alerts and these fake, who knows, all of this stuff with the terror alert and fear. And they even shut down some New Year's celebration because of it. And I think that was in Brussels. But then we hear the story that stuck out to me was the one where the Shiite Sunni the conflict between the Muslim groups, the more moderates and the extremists, are coming to a powder keg. This is the ignition to a huge conflict that could bring in all the major countries, and this could be their starting point. They always need a flashpoint to get things going, don't they? 9/11 was a good example. Pearl Harbor back in World War II. And as you look back, you go back to what happened in England in the 1600s, when they were trying to blow up Parliament, and that whole, they always have to have a powder keg. So this is something that's not new, but you have to watch out for that. And I think you're going to see an escalated campaign this year of terror. You're going to see an escalated campaign. Unfortunately, the signs are there. We'll be back in just 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal with more information. Back in 3 minutes.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the left behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, we are back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal on this January 4th, 2016. Got it right, date on our calendar. First show for this year. And before you know it, it'll be over, and we'll be saying the same thing next year, okay? But hopefully during this year, we can see a lot of good things happen, and I believe there will be so many more good things happening this year than bad that I'm going to spend a lot of time this year talking about those things. But let's go back to the old lifelong question, who are they? And when we say they, them, you have to go back to a movie that was done by, it's called Conspiracy Theory, with two really famous actors, Julia Roberts and Mel Gibson. And I watched part of it again just because I wanted to hear some of the things they were saying back then. It's quite interesting. Who are they? Who are they? And Philip Lednier, who has been emailing me for years regarding his situation as being a targeted individual by microwave weaponry. And he's done a lot in this field of studying this, and I agree with him. They do this to unsuspecting people. And I have firsthand knowledge of that by doing shows for a couple of years on the subject, starting off by many people when I started doing them calling me out of my mind. Well, that's what many people said when I started talking about the Vatican in the way I do. But even people like Bill Hicks and Alex Jones, who I think are the same person, although people will disagree with me, I hope he's at Bill Hicks, because I talked to him years ago, and I really like some of Bill Hicks's comedy, and I would have asked for his autograph back then. But anyway, even Alex Jones is now trumpeting that the Vatican is being taken over by the evil Jesuits, and so he's getting on the bandwagon here, but he's sitting on the back of the wagon, okay, with his feet kind of dragging on the ground. And the reason is this is kind of an idea of divide and conquer, I believe. It's kind of like Dan Brown's book, remember Angels and Demons, the evil Illuminati coming in to destroy the good church. So they're actually through the saying there is this idea that the top levels of the church, the formations of the church are good. I disagree totally. with that with that way of thinking. And Philip Lednier sent me this email to remind me of that. So let's look at what he said and see what you think. He said, as a targeted person, I've been thinking about this question of who they are for a couple of years. Now, lately, while browsing about this matter, I found a very interesting book that I warmly suggest you to read. It's called Pawns in the Game. Now, I'm talking now. I read this. I've read most of this. It's done by a military guy by the name of Guy Carr, something like that. And I'll go back and look through it again. There's a lot of detail in there. And I recommend read it as well. But now back to Philip. He says it dates back to 1950 and explains century-old historical affairs in very much detail. It helps understanding how the society we are living in is oriented toward mass manipulation, intrigues, and profit. Now, this next statement, I'm going to say this. I don't know. I think he says this. To be fair, I would like to mention that other people think another way. Namely, and then he puts my website and a story I did, Greg Category Confessions to the Jesuits, is implicating the Catholic Church. Okay, let me stop right there. I don't know how I disagree with Pawns in the Game, because there's so much in there that a lot of it I agreed with, but I will make this statement, that I disagree with the fact that what people are saying is that the Vatican started out good and somewhere down the line became infested, and he's saying by the Jesuits, so that has to be somewhere in the 1500s. So you're telling me that up until that point, it was a great organization. Well, I disagree. I really disagree. And then, I know people now are saying this started with the Jesuit Pope. Now, they're even saying it started with Vatican II, the Vatican II Antichrist popes. Before that, it was good. I disagree totally. I don't think it was ever good. And I think it was always an abomination. And to try and pinpoint where it went wrong is really overlooking historical, biblical statements about this organization and about the connection of the beast with the beast here in America and all of these things that Revelations points out. So yes, I will say that to try to say that the Vatican, like Alex Jones is saying, went wrong now because of the infiltration, or Bill Hicks, let's call him Bill, started with the Jesuits, Pope, this Antichrist Pope, and then others say, no, it was Vatican II popes that are the Antichrist. Before that, it was good. And then others are saying, well, why don't we go back to the 1850s? And what about that maniacal Pope who brought in the idea of papal infallibility? That was still during the Jesuit time. Let's go back to the Jesuits' formations in 1500s. Let's go back to the popes prior to that who were involved in so much scandal. Let's go back to the beginning of Look, anytime you worship idols, create a government, create a building, create a seat in Rome built on a satanic location, and then you bring all these idols and symbols, it was never any good. Now, I'm not saying there aren't good people working inside of the organization at lower levels. That to me is different. That's what I'm talking about. The idea that Tupper Saucy brought in should be brought up here, that there are reconcilers in a system of condemnation. And of course, there are condemners in the system of reconciliation. Look at all these satanic pastors who are supposedly representing Jesus. The one I mentioned where I went to that service over the holidays. And this guy flashes the devil sign right at the end of the worship service. So a lot of condemners working inside the so-called Bible-believing community. So there's a mix here. But let's make the point clear. Yes, I want to go on record as stating the Vatican at the highest levels has always been an evil organization and still is today. And nothing is, if they weren't, then all of these symbols would have never stood the test of time that they have. If there was a good part of the church, why would they keep the Vatican in this? Why was it in the same spot? Why are all these satanic things in this building? And why is the statue there? It's just a crazy, crazy notion to try to pinpoint where the good church went bad. It was a bad church that always did this. Did good, hid behind Jesus, hid behind everything. That's why throughout the course of centuries they would work with anybody. That's why the Vatican Bank is the biggest money laundering operation in the world. That is why the Jesuits back in the old days got together, working hand. It's like the good cop, bad cop. They need them just like they need the Pope. The Pope needs the Jesuits just like the Jesuits need the Pope. And it's never going to change. It's just getting worse. And to try and say that there was a good part of the church that was worshiping Mary, that's what really befuddles me. And I talk to people who, and I have a good friend from Rome that me and him go back and forth all the time, and I love this guy to death. Eric's his first name, and we used to work together in Rome, and he's but we differ. He believes in this old Catholic, that there's good old Catholics. And I said, well, what about this Mary worship? And so we get into these arguments that, to me, I straighten out very quickly, that this organization at the top levels has been the abomination. And they hide behind everything good, and they use good people to their benefit. And hopefully we can pull some of those people out of there. That's all I hope for. And that's why we do this show. And it's not only just to he's only one of the few guys that talks this way. No, it's not that at all. Hopefully somebody that's listening on the other side will come over. That's all. And I'm no evangelist by no means. But I feel compelled because of the information I learned when I was there. I told you a long time ago. I had a vested interest in terrorism because I was almost blown up in 1982. And I read you the story that proves it. So anybody out there doesn't believe me, just go back to that UPI story. So I wanted to look into it, and I happened to be right there in the belly of the beast, and at that time I didn't know anything. But that changed my life. And so all these little things that happen now, all these little arguments, to me, just, please, if we disagree on this subject, let's not forget that we're looking at the same enemy here, and then how to deal with that enemy. I'm more concerned how to deal with it now. And if you want to go on believing that there was a good side at one point of the church, and this is the pinpoint date that they changed, and the Jesuits were there or Dan Brown's book about that book is so off base, that movie Angels and Demons is so off base that, it's no more propaganda making the Vatican look like it's a good organization at the top. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I got to play, I wish I had a screen I could show you something they did back. Oh, God, they did a light show on the Vatican walls. Unbelievable. I'm going to play that for you this week. And this light show they did, placed all these animals on the Vatican wall. You got to see this. And this is it shows you what they're really all about. I can't quite explain it verbally without looking at the video while I'm talking to you, but that just came to my mind. So we're moving on here. And so I wanted to get that out of the way. So then Phil comes back. He says, in my opinion, the gap between these points of view can be closed if one consider an old and profound infiltration of the Catholic Church, particularly by the way of Jesuits. I don't believe that you can. I don't think the gap is ever going to, I am not going to close this gap. I am going to widen it and say, listen, you got to realize this is not just the Jesuit bad guys infiltrating here. No. Anyway, who we are talking about are people that usually are called spies. Now, he gets into some really good stuff here, but we are talking about something much more developed than professional army spies. They hide behind fake characters. Yes, in the Jesuits, we talk about this all the time. They've done this throughout the course of the history. Some common characters are example the lost people from the enemy camp, homeless people, young rebels, in a position to undermine their own people, respected people in good positions to spy. What best character than to be a psychiatrist? Of course, a psychiatrist can get a bit of information that can start a path of information gathering. How about going to confession? Oh, you can get a lot of information there. Bless me, Father, for I've sinned. And then, they know who you are behind that screen. If one would analyze, let's say, a cousin of an influential person and get just a bit of personal information on its family, whistleblowers are another spy, he says. This is coming from that book, I believe, The Pawns in the Game. What best position or counterintelligence agent of the order to be considered as somebody denouncing the order? Oh, there's a lot of those guys. Or simply incarnating an archetypal opponent character. They could use these archetypes. Well, what about what Tupper Saucy said? He found out the prosecutor in his IRS case was actually a Jesuit priest. And you'll find they're all over the place. They're lawyers. They wrote, for example, do you forget they wrote the Patriot Act? Before, that was written by a Vietnam attorney that worked as a Jesuit in Georgetown. He wrote that. His name was Vin Din. He was the main author of the Patriot Act, over 300 pages, written prior to 9/11. Isn't that interesting? And they don't know what's going on? I'm sorry, but I don't remember the internal link to the paper, says he, on this, whatever he's talking about. Let's forget about that. This paper was saying that nowadays association between Arabs and Muslims is quite recent. In fact, Islam, like Christianity, was losing very much influence after World War II. Well, we're going to get into this whole idea of Islam right now. I don't want to do it because it's a complicated issue that goes back to, I believe, who created the Quran, and that was written probably by you-know-who, the same guys that wrote Mein Kampf, the good boys back in the 700s, thinking of another way to create an enemy, and they were busy at work, even back then, creating this organization. That's just something for you to read, look at. Okay, so he says he encourages you to read Pawns in the Game. Go right ahead. That's just Google Pawns in the Game. You can find an online version, and let me see who this guy is. I got it right here. What's his name? It's coming up. The guy who wrote the book. I'm going to give it to you. Yes, he's okay. William Guy Carr is his name. He's a military guy. And at an early age of 12, the author was thoroughly indoctrinated into the Bolshevik ideology of two revolutionary missionaries who traveled on the same ship with him out to the Orient in 1907. Okay, so he was a commander, and World War I, he served as a navigating officer on subs, etc., etc. So go look at some of the information he has, and we will move on. Okay, I do have some time, and it's probably worth doing here. Although I can't finish it, but we have about 9 minutes, so why don't we get into this, because it's kind of fun. Christmas is over. I always said that, the idea of celebrating Jesus' birthday is great. The idea of celebrating on the 25th of December is weird, because that's what we are told to do as we grow up as kids. And we wonder where this came from. So I did many shows showing you that this date has pagan influence, but it shouldn't wipe away the importance of Christmas for those of you who believe in Jesus Christ. And we're just basically told to do it on the 25th, when in fact, if you look at some of the biblical references, he could not have been born during that time of the year. It was more like sometime in spring, I guess they say. And there are people that give exact dates. So why don't we, somebody sent me this, The Truth About Christmas. I'm not trying to destroy your holiday. By the time next Christmas comes, you will have forgotten about this. So Kate, I haven't done this in 3 or 4 years, so I thought I'd bring it back. And let's see what she says, this woman here, on a video called The Truth About Christmas, What You're Not Being Told. And I will then comment and agree or disagree with certain things. So let's listen to this.
It has been called the Day of Days. It is a time of magic, pageantry, warmth, generosity, and love. For many of us, our fondest childhood memories revolve around the traditions of Christmas. It is a time that many around the world celebrate as the birth of Jesus Christ, the Savior and Messiah of mankind. In recent years, however, the spiritual holiday has become a time of mass marketing and crass commercialism. Incredibly, many businesses derive more than half their yearly income during this period. The process of gift-giving, once thought to have come from the story of the wise men who offered gifts to the newborn Christ, has evolved into the buying frenzy we see today during the month of December. But what about the other Christmas traditions? Have you ever wondered why we decorate the Christmas tree? Why we light the Yule log? Why we hang the mistletoe? And why we teach our children to believe in Santa Claus? In the next hour, you will discover the true origins of Christmas. You may be surprised or even shocked to learn the source of your favorite holiday traditions. Chances are, you'll never look at Christmas the same ever again. In the Northern Hemisphere during late December, the days are at their shortest lengths and the nights are at their longest. For those of the pagan world, this has always been the greatest time of the year to celebrate and practice the works of darkness. The pagan calendar identifies this period as the winter solstice. It was during the pre-Christian midwinter pagan celebrations of Scandinavia's Norsemen where today's Christmas traditions began. As a means of honoring the pagan sex and fertility god Yule, a 12-day celebration during the month of December was inaugurated. A large single log considered to be a phallic idol was lit on fire and kept burning for 12 days. Animal or human sacrifices were offered in the fire on each of those days. Wild, delirious reveling accompanied the daily sacrifices as drunken participants defiantly strove to make contact with spirits. 1,000 miles away in pre-Christian Rome, celebrants were paying homage to their own gods during the winter solstice. Witchcraft traditions hold that a number of pagan gods were given birth during this period, including Dionysus, Attis, and Baal, chief male god of fertility and licentiousness. Another pagan god from Persia, identified as Mithra, was said to have been born specifically on December 25th. Mithra was the god of the unconquerable sun, the god of the light between heaven and earth, worshipped at that time by an influential Roman cult. His birth symbolized an end to the long nights and a return to the dominance of the sun. During the month-long winter solstice celebration, courts in Rome were closed. Any and all crimes were allowed. Homosexuality, cross-dressing, and uncontrolled debauchery reigned supreme. Rome's order was turned upside down. Even children were allowed to join in the drunken orgies as part of the Juvenalia celebration. By 270 AD, the Roman Emperor Aurelian had made it official, setting aside a 7-day period from December the 17th through the 24th, culminating in an exchange of gifts on December the 25th to celebrate the birth of the sun god. This Roman orgy to end all orgies later became known as Saturnalia, in honor of the god Saturn, the god of excess. Roman soldiers invading Britain brought with them their pagan orgiastic traditions. Upon taking root in England, Saturnalia became known as the Festival of Fools, reigned over by the Lord of Misrule. By the 4th century, the influential government-sanctioned Church of Rome, unable to outlaw the growing number of pagan practices, chose instead to adopt them into their so-called official Christianity. The Church believed this would attract more pagans to their fold. Up until this time, the birthday of Jesus Christ, the Jewish Messiah, had not been celebrated at all. Ignoring scriptures, however, indicating that the birth probably did not occur during the winter, the Church nevertheless confused biblical history and made Jesus' birthday coincide with the pagan god Mithra. The birth date of the sun god had now become the birth date of the Son of God. It was hoped that the pagan celebrations of Saturnalia would merge into this new legally sanctioned form of Christianity. The Church's practice of changing the dates of Christian events to coincide with pagan festivals continued, and by the 7th century, Pope Gregory I had ordered Augustine of Canterbury to incorporate any and all pagan practices and customs into the expanding Roman Catholic Church. During the Middle Ages, the debased Mardi Gras atmosphere of what was now known as Christ's Mass had reached a fevered pitch. Common practices included open sex in the streets, rioting, murder, and a number of pagan druidic Halloween rituals. This blood-drenched celebration got so out of hand that by 1652, following the execution of King Charles I, Christ's Mass was finally outlawed in England. A religious reform movement began sweeping the country, led by Puritan Oliver Cromwell. The Puritans took the biblical mandate seriously, which commanded that Christianity remain pure and separate from paganism. Despite their noble efforts, the celebration simply went underground, and by 1656, after only 4 short years under the ban, the public's demand for the legalization of Christ's Mass had become insurmountable.
I know you want to hear the rest of this, but we're all out of time today. But I promise, I will play this from the, there's another 28 minutes. So let's play it tomorrow and pick up a little bit more on lost history and why we celebrate Christmas on December 25th. Okay, you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Come back and listen to the Investigative Journal tomorrow on FirstAmendmentRadio.com, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Greg Anthony. Good night.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.